Unraveling the Great Gatsby, peeling the onion of West Egg. All right, let's jump right into this brilliant literary puzzle. In today's explainer, we're going to peel back the incredibly complex layers of wealth, class, and illusion to get to the ultimate mystery at the heart of F. Scott Fitzgerald's masterpiece. You know, you can kind of think of this as your structured guide through the Roaring Twenties. If you think today's influencer culture is obsessed with flashy wealth and carefully curated facades, well, just wait until you see 1920s Long Island. Out here, absolutely nothing is quite what it seems, and every single detail has a hidden meaning.
So, who is Jay Gatsby? I mean, before we even officially meet our main character, we've got to ask the exact same question that is on every single partygoer's lips. Who exactly is this guy? We hear his name whispered in the shadows, we see the massive, undeniable footprint of his wealth, but the man himself, he's a total ghost. And that absence, right, it creates this massive vacuum that his guests are just all too happy to fill with their own wild, made-up imaginations.
You just have to love the sheer theatricality of the rumors swirling around our title character before he even steps onto the page. Someone says they heard he killed a man once. Another swears he was a German spy during the war. It's wild. No one actually knows him, yet they're all perfectly happy to drink his champagne and dance on his lawns all night. And honestly, it tells us less about Gatsby himself and much, much more about the careless, sensation-hungry society that just relentlessly flocks to his door.
Section 1. Welcome to the Eggs.
To really make sense of this deeply divided world, we're heading to Long Island, New York, right in the sweltering summer of 1922. And our guide through this whole chaotic landscape? That's Nick Carraway, a young bond salesman from the Midwest. He grounds us with this piece of advice from his father, basically to reserve all judgments. He claims to be highly tolerant, you know, the kind of guy who just sits back and observes the madness. Though, as he's pretty quick to admit, even his tolerance has a limit. When he finally returns from the East, he wants the whole world in uniform and at a sort of moral attention forever. He's such a fascinating lens through which to view this story, because his reliability is constantly being tested.
Right off the bat, we run straight into a stark geographical and class warfare that absolutely defines the landscape of the story. We've got East Egg on one side and West Egg on the other, just separated by this courtesy bay. Sure, they might look similar from up in the sky, but culturally, they are galaxies apart. East Egg is the untouchable domain of the old money elite. These are the people who simply inherited their wealth and their entitlement. Then you have West Egg, which is where Nick rents this tiny little cardboard bungalow right next to Gatsby's colossal mansion. This is the land of the newly rich. It's flashy, it's gaudy, and to those East Eggers, it is just entirely tasteless.
Section 2. The Old Money Elite.
So Nick drives on over to East Egg to have dinner with his cousin Daisy and her husband Tom Buchanan. And it's here that we get our first true, unvarnished taste of how the other half actually lives. Tom is a former football star with this massive, cruel body, and his aggressive way of speaking just completely dominates every single room he enters. He is physically imposing, constantly leaning forward aggressively, almost like he literally wants to tackle the world. At one point, Daisy calls him hulking, and he absolutely hates it. But Nick observes that, well, it's entirely accurate. Tom perfectly represents the brute force and the unyielding arrogance of entrenched old money.
And during that dinner, we get a crystal-clear window into Tom's elitist, deeply insecure worldview. He passionately rants about this incredibly racist book, The Rise of the Colored Empires, claiming the white race will be completely submerged if they aren't careful. It just goes to show that underneath all that staggering wealth and physical power, Tom is fundamentally terrified of losing his dominant position in society. His immense privilege just isn't quite enough to keep him comfortable anymore.
Meanwhile, his wife Daisy is dealing with an entirely different kind of tragedy. She actively masks her deep cynicism and her very real pain over Tom's obvious infidelities behind this highly memorable, heartbreaking wish for her newborn daughter. She says she hopes she'll be a fool, that a beautiful little fool is the best thing a girl can be in this world. Just think about that for a second. How deeply tragic is it that a mother's greatest wish for her own child is absolute ignorance? She knows exactly what kind of brutal world she lives in, a world where intelligence really only brings a woman pain if she's trapped in a marriage like hers. Nick famously describes her voice as being full of money, this sort of singing compulsion that just draws you right in. But underneath that shiny surface, she is profoundly disillusioned.
Section 3. The Valley of Ashes.
Okay, in stark contrast to the glittering white palaces of the Eggs, we are suddenly and violently pulled into this dark, forgotten wasteland. If East and West Egg represent the glamorous facades of the American dream, this desolate area, sitting halfway between West Egg and New York, is the hidden, toxic exhaust pipe. This is a fantastic farm, where ashes literally grow like wheat,
It's where the ash-gray, desperate reality of the working class physically crumbles, and it's all watched over by the giant, fading, unblinking eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg from this old advertising billboard. It's a completely haunting visual. Those eyes serve as a literal and figurative presence, passing silent, forgotten judgment on the absolute moral decay happening right beneath them.
And the old money elite? They don't just conveniently ignore this valley, they recklessly use and physically destroy the real people who are trapped inside it. Case in point, Tom effectively forces Nick off a train just to meet his mistress Myrtle Wilson. She lives right over a failing, dust-covered garage with her spiritless husband, George. Myrtle is just so desperate to escape her social class, totally buying into the grand illusion of wealth that Tom provides for her. So they go to this secret apartment in the city, throw a ridiculously raucous drunken party, and the very second Myrtle dares to even mention Daisy's name, Tom brutally breaks her nose with an open hand. It is a chilling, abrupt display of his absolute power and his total lack of consequence.
Section 4. The Enigma of Gatsby.
Now that we actually know the brutal rules of this world, we step right into the center of the rumor mill to finally examine the man who gives his name to our story. And wow, the sheer overwhelming scale of Gatsby's wealth is just staggering. The logistics alone for his parties are insane. We're talking 5 crates of oranges and lemons delivered weekly, an entire pit full of oboes, trombones, and saxophones, buffet tables loaded up with spiced, baked hams and pastry pigs. It's like a culinary magic trick. But you know what the saddest part is? Throngs of these guests aren't even invited. They just show up, park their cars, and treat his private home like a free amusement park, paying him the incredibly subtle tribute of knowing absolutely nothing about him.
So, when Nick finally meets him, and it's so funny, he actually accidentally tells the man himself that he hasn't met the host yet, Gatsby isn't some chaotic monster at all. Actually, in the midst of all this drunken, swirling madness, Gatsby is surprisingly sober. He's highly formal, constantly calling Nick old sport, and he seems to be carefully, deliberately picking every single word he says. And then there's that famous declaration, "I'm Gatsby." He flashes this smile that has a quality of eternal reassurance in it. It's a smile that seems to understand you exactly as far as you want to be understood. Honestly, it's a total masterclass in projection.
But his backstory? It keeps us entirely off balance. It's this bizarre mix of unbelievable cliché and surprisingly tangible proof. When Gatsby takes Nick for a drive to the city, he spins a tale that sounds straight out of a cheap dime novel. He claims he was educated at Oxford, lived like a young Rajah in Europe, collecting rubies, hunting big game. I mean, Nick literally almost laughs out loud. It sounds like a threadbare lie. But then, boom, Gatsby produces an actual, authentic medal from Montenegro for his valor in the Argonne Forest, and a real photograph of himself playing cricket at Trinity Quad in Oxford. Suddenly, the impossible feels uncomfortably real.
Then, the facade cracks even further when Gatsby introduces Nick to his associate, Meyer Wolfsheim. Now, 1919 isn't just some random year. It is the exact year Wolfsheim literally fixed the World Series. During a lunch in New York, Nick is introduced to this guy, a man who casually wears human molars as cufflinks. I mean, no way, right? And Gatsby casually drops the bomb that this is the man who played with the faith of 50 million Americans. It subtly but firmly hints at the dark, criminal underbelly of Gatsby's endless money. He's clearly not just a lucky inheritor. We're realizing he is swimming in some very, very dangerous waters.
Section 5. The Past Revealed.
Finally, through a flashback narrated by the professional golfer Jordan Baker at the Plaza Hotel, the fog completely clears. Back in 1917, a penniless 18-year-old military officer named Jay Gatsby fell madly, deeply in love with the most popular girl in Louisville, Daisy Fay. In 1918, he goes off to war. She waited for him, sure, but not quite long enough. Under the intense, suffocating pressure of her family, who physically prevented her from leaving to say goodbye, and the societal demand to secure her future, she married Tom Buchanan in 1919 with unprecedented pomp and circumstance. So Gatsby isn't just a bootlegger throwing random lavish parties. Every single light, every orchestra, every drop of champagne, it's all a desperate, highly calculated beacon trying to lure one specific woman back across the bay. He is a man desperately trying to completely erase the last 5 years of history.
Take a second to really let that number sink in. $350,000. That is the exact value of the pearl necklace Tom Buchanan gave Daisy the day before their wedding. It perfectly, materially symbolizes the overwhelming, corrupting power of old money, the very thing that tore her away from Gatsby. The night before the wedding, she actually got drunk, tried to throw the necklace away, and just sobbed over a letter from Gatsby.
But guess what? By the very next day, those pearls were right back around her neck and the marriage was on.
So, what does this all mean? Now that Nick knows the truth, what is Gatsby going to ask of him? With all the cards finally out on the table, and that massive, colossal mansion perfectly positioned right next door to Nick, who, just happens to be Daisy's cousin, the trap is completely set. We're left to wonder just how far Gatsby will actually go to turn back time and what kind of collateral damage he's going to cause along the way. Can you really repeat the past just because you finally have the money to buy it? Think about your own illusions as we wrap up this explainer. It's been an incredible journey peeling back these layers with you. Until next time, keep questioning the world around you.